This is Mission Transition, a podcast powered by still serving veterans. Here, those who've served open up about what comes after the military, the questions, the breakthroughs, and the lessons learned. Because transition isn't the end of the mission, it's the beginning of the next one.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Corey Hopkins. I'm with Still Serving Veterans doing the Mission Transition podcast. I'm here with retired Colonel Mark Jones from the Air Force. He's graced us with his presence today, and we are going to talk about his transition and what he's done with that. But first off, Mark, thank you for coming on, sir. I certainly appreciate that, spending your time with us.
It's a pleasure to be here, Corey. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, sir. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, your branch of services Air Force, and what role you had and how long you served?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to give some background. So I am originally from California. I went to college at UC Davis in Northern California. Started ROTC at Sacramento State University. Graduated in 1998. And so I just retired 2025. So that's 27 years. Serving in the Air Force, which has been a great journey. In the Air Force, I started out first as an intelligence officer, served primarily roughly 12 years doing that, and then about halfway through my career, I decided to try something new, and I transitioned to become a Foreign Area Officer, or FAO. And so the Air Force sent me to learn Arabic and get a master's in Middle East Studies, and I became a CENTCOM expert for all things Middle East for the rest of my career, with a few touch points back to the intelligence career field, as the Air Force likes to keep people doing dual track until recently. Recently, they switched over to be like the Army and do single track, but until recently, they were doing dual track.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so what originally motivated you to join the military?
Well, honestly, growing up near a military base in San Diego, near the Marines, so I was exposed to Camp Pendleton and what it's like to be a Marine. Also, I always want to be, serve in some capacity. So I was in college. I was majoring in history, and I knew that getting a job as a history major would probably be challenging. So I was, thinking through my options, and so I considered joining the military. One, as a job, two, as a way to serve my country, and then three, as a stepping stone to join the FBI.
Oh, wow!
It's always been kind of a dream of mine, and so I applied about halfway through college. So I did the short ROTC program of just 2 years, and that's how I ended up commissioning in the Air Force. To do my 4 years commitment and then get out and join the FBI. Clearly, that didn't work out so well. 27 years later, here I am.
Yeah, really. And speaking of that, 27 years later, what was the decision of when you get out? Like, what was the right time for you? What was surrounding the reason to get out?
Perfect.
Or not get out, to retire. There's a big difference between getting out of the military and retiring out of the military. So
that is true.
Retiring.
I mean, the process is pretty similar, right? Transitioning, separating, retiring. But, so 27 years, the timing is absolutely perfect for us. I was in a command position. So coming out of command, I had to go get a new job. And my boys, I have two boys that were going to be starting high school. So by retiring at this moment in time, we can now pick a place we want to live. And our boys can do all 4 years of high school in one spot. Because as you know, military kids move a lot. And we were very excited to be able to offer them the opportunity to settle down and then have a proper high school experience. And so that's really what drove the desire to retire when we did.
Yeah, I run into that a lot with people I talk to that, ask them what led to them either transitioning or retiring. And a lot of it has to do with the family dynamics, where the kids are at school, what's going on. That was similar to mine. I was able to get my kid to go to 3 years in one high school. So that was a big decider of why I retired when I did. So how did you prepare for your transition? So did you start like a year out and start, finding out crumbs and information as you were going along? And talk to us about the transition process
Sure.
for you.
Yeah, well, I'll start off first by saying mine was somewhat extended because I was seriously considering retiring at my previous duty station in Hawaii. So 2 years prior, I was kind of thinking already, hey, I think it's time to retire.
Right.
So I started, I did a TAP class way back in 2022 because I thought 2023 would be the end of my career. However, the Air Force gave me the opportunity to move to Monterey,
Nice.
which was really my dream
Nice.
job. So I
Yeah.
couldn't turn that down when I was selected for that command opportunity. So that put a pause, obviously, on what I had already started doing as far as thinking about retiring, going through TAP class, starting to talk to mentors, and starting to generate that network. So then I did my 2-year commands in Monterey. And then so that second half, I was still very invested in my position in Monterey, but starting to think through what retirement's going to look like. So I did another TAP class in 2024. And then I started, going back to that network piece, generating that network, both virtually from friends who are already out, talking to them, what is it, what should I be doing? And then I got connected with still serving veterans through another friend in my network who lives here in Huntsville.
Yep.
And that's when I first reached out to you guys, or actually you reached out to me, Corey. So that it's a long process, the whole retirement journey, if you will. So along the way, like you said, picking up those crumbs, talking to people, getting their experience, and trying to, I learned quickly that everyone has a different view on what it should look like and how it goes based on their own experience. And so I was trying to stitch together the best of what everybody did without trying to lose sight of those very specific regulatory things you have to do to retire.
Right.
And also not losing sight of the fact that I was still a full-time commander, of a very busy location. So it was the last year it was busy.
Sure. And if you would go into having worked with you, and I knew that there was a process you and your spouse and family went through with, you were out in California, and the reason why you chose Huntsville, and kind of the whole, talk to us about, you guys did a measured effect of which cities would serve you best, and kind of talk to us how the thought process of why Huntsville, all the way from California to Huntsville, Alabama.
Right. Yeah. It's a great question because, there's people who retire and they stay in their same home. They already got a job lined up.
Right.
They don't have to move. The kids are already established. We knew right off the bat that we couldn't stay, even if we wanted to, staying in Monterey is one of the most expensive places in America.
Sure.
And so we didn't want to be stuck in that position of having to really be fighting for every dollar. We put together a matrix, and so we really had the whole United States to look at, and so we scored that out, and we looked at things like weather, we looked at cost of living, we looked at school quality, we looked at things like, hey, is there a lot of job opportunities? What is the median price of a home? And so we picked like 10 places. Based on those criteria, and then we scored them out. And when I say scored them out, it wasn't real scientific. It was kind of a seat of the pants kind of look at things.
Right.
Also, reputation was one thing we looked at. And as we went through it, and we did it multiple times, and Huntsville just kept coming up on top. The right combination of great weather, great job opportunities, with such a huge defense industry here, supporting Redstone Arsenal. The schools are really good, and the cost of living is really good. So that's how we ended up in Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, I think that's great because for me, my transition, I literally I sat on my front porch of the house that I live in now. I said, I'm going to do 20 years. I'm going to come back. So it frightens me when I talk to guys like you. They're like, you know what? I'll go anywhere. I'll pick up my family and go anywhere. So I always found that interesting of what the process people have as to where they want to go. And a lot of times that is job driven, but I really like y'all's approach about doing a matrix, having it, scoring it out and being able to be very intentional about where you guys are going to end up. So I think that that's something I'm going to take with me when I'm counseling the veterans as far as if they're in the military and they're transitioning out. Hey, because I'm gonna make it a habit of talking to them about why are you moving? Why are you staying in the location? A lot of times, like you said, the veterans will have been there 3 or 4 years. They have a house. Their kids are already entrenched in school, and they're just going to get out and make the seamless transition. Versus being able to have a more wider aperture of where they could go and the jobs that they could have. Because a lot of times around, especially if it's a small military post or a station, that is saturated with people that are getting out and that have that there's no real jobs there available, especially for if it's a small post. But appreciate you sharing the kind of the thought process.
I think what a lot of people who are transitioning struggle with, especially ones that for whatever reason need to move, is the whole chicken or egg thing. And that came up a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you pick the location first and hope there'll be a job there? Or do you go job searching, get a job offer, and then you move to that place and hope it's a place you want to be in?
Right.
So we felt like what we did was the best way of trying to merge the two, and not commit, in just one of the, categories, if you will,
right,
we had put together.
Yeah, no, I was, and because transition is hard enough, especially, throw in you're having to move your household goods. I know you guys, I thought you did a smart thing was you said you're going to do temporary renting. You're going to rent for a temporarily, have time to look for a house and do all that kind of stuff. So are you guys going to have to move your own stuff now that, or did you leave it in storage until you?
Everything's in storage. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So not only did we get a short-term rental, but we got one that is furnished.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So that we could not have to move again all of our stuff. So yeah, perfect. So that was, another challenge that we had to overcome by, we had to find it in the right school district.
Right.
Had to have furniture, had to allow pet, and had to allow a dog, right? Because we can't go anywhere without our dog.
Sure. Yeah, and that's, you talk about dogs are part of the family, so they're part of the transition too. They load them babies up and have to make accommodations. So good on you guys be able to find that needle in the haystack, so to speak, with furnishing and being able to allow pets.
Yeah.
So you can, obviously there was a lot of time. How much time did you think you and the spouse committed to like making the whole ship move, making it all go?
You mean once we arrived here, or?
No, just in total of like, you talked about you did the matrix of where you wanted to live. So then there was the part of having people come and move your stuff. How'd you find the house that allowed you to have a dog that was furnished, that's in the right school district, that could, like all these
things.
Tick marks. Yeah.
The last pretty much January and all the way up through now, it's just been really busy as we've tried to knock out all of those things. My wife was working full time. Our kids were in school. We were super busy back in Monterey. I was still traveling for work. And so we were trying to, piece together time to dedicate, when we had free moments to this process.
Right.
And as you know, there's just a lot to do when you're also doing the move and the job hunt at the same time.
Sure.
So yeah, I'd say the last so January to June, the last 6-7 months of my military career was packed.
Right.
Was exceptionally busy.
Right. And I think that's something that people sometimes probably underestimate is the amount of time it takes to have a successful transition, and that taking into account all those things, your spouse having a job, kids in school, the timing of when it's going to happen, all the effort it takes to find a new location, a new homestead, all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you mentioned that it took a good 6 months of really a lot of energy, mental energy, and a total family commitment to making it happen. So and a lot of times the people that probably about 70% of the clients I work with are in that 6 months to a year out. And they sometimes people will say, "Oh, I'm going to wait until I start transition leave to start looking for a job."
No way.
Right? Exactly.
No way.
Exactly. Go ahead. Why do you say? What would you say to some? What
Well,
would be your
okay. So
advice?
let me qualify that no way comment. You definitely need to start dipping your toes in soon, right? Don't wait to at least explore what job markets look like, what tools are out there. Whether you got to pick a platform, like Indeed or Glassdoor or one of the various job boards that you can go to and just see what's out there and start thinking about what your resume is going to look like. But the challenge is timing.
Yep.
Most companies will post a job, but if you see it, but you still have 5 months before you can, be ready to go to work. You can't really start apply. You can apply, of course, but if you get an interview, you're gonna have to tell them, I can't work for 5 more months, and then
Right.
they're gonna be like, really? So the timing is tough
It
because
is.
you want to balance starting to make those applications with companies not wanting to wait. So
Right.
that's why you definitely can't wait because you got to get that experience. And then, so the sooner you get that experience of, you know, tailoring your resume, you got to start with that master resume, then you got to tailor it for each job. And that in itself is a skill set that took a while for
Mm.
me to develop. So the sooner you start applying for positions is good. I would say you can never apply too early.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because that's a lot of times I'll say to people that say, "Oh, that are in a situation, the timing situation that they're 5 months out. Is it, they're asking me, when is it, when should I start applying? When should I not?" And I tell them exactly what you just said is go ahead and start applying now. Get into the habit of it. See what it's like to submit a resume on, whether it be through LinkedIn, Indeed, or actually, we really encourage people to go to the website and apply through the website. That just like you said, it's become job hunting becomes a skill in and of itself, and it's not just submitting resumes. I know that having worked with you, sir, that you've done all the little things that were probably suggested to you with getting in touch with still serving veterans, going to the TAP classes. You went to the enterprise business connections that we hosted. You went to the social functions. I saw you at the social. So you did an all encompassing effort. Could you talk to more about that?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just getting a resume and applying online.
Yeah,
It's more than
that's
that.
right.
Can you talk more about like the whole
Yeah, for
effort, the
sure.
big effort?
For sure. I would say the applying through the company website, like you said, is like it's like the final product of what you
Right.
do. But there's
Right.
all the things that you have to get to that point. You could start with that, but you're not going to get. I would, in my humble opinion, you're not going to have a whole lot of success just doing that. You
Right.
have to do those other things. And for me, the network piece is the most important thing that anyone can do who is transitioning. Like you said, I got here, I immediately dived into the local network population, and that's one of the great things that I've learned about Huntsville is the local network and connections here is incredible. So, starting with you guys, you and Dave introduced me to so many people. Like you said, I went to the Business Enterprise Connections. That was a great event, and I met numerous people through that, and that just continued to expand that network.
Right.
And then, as I've said earlier, there's also what I call a virtual network, and by that I mean the network that you've created over the course of your career, whether you're getting out after your first enlistment, or you're getting out, as a 10-year, making it through about 10 years, or you're retiring. You've developed a network within whatever skill set, whatever career field you're in. And so those are the types of people that you need to rely on because most of the time you're going to military folks are going to probably going to go into a similar career field, right? To
Right.
what they did. Not always, but most of the time, it's what I, think is that people will go in and do something similar. And so they're going to have that network already laid out based on what they did in the military. And so it's that network that then helps you get those applications to the top of the stack, if you want to use
Right.
that, because if you just keep submitting them nonstop into the portal of a company, they just go into the Ethernet.
Right.
And it's really, really hard because so many people apply to these jobs. If you don't have somebody vouching for you on the sideline, you're probably not going to have a lot of success. And as you heard at the Business Enterprise Connections, numerous speakers, right, panelists,
Yep.
said every job they ever got was because of who they knew,
Right.
through their network, not by applying to a position.
Yeah. And that's what I thought was impressive, that again, you knew probably, I don't know how many, I don't know, not too many people in Huntsville when you first got here. Maybe you probably had some from connections.
I knew two. One is you. The other one was a friend of mine.
Right. And so I think, that can give people, that it's inspiring that, again, you can come. And another thing too, is what I liked about kind of being a little bit of a part of your journey is, you're a retired 06. You didn't say, well, I'm a tired 06. Everybody and their brother's going to give me a job. I'm going to be in demand.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to beat people away. You really went after and really attacked it with an enthusiasm and a strategic approach, which has ultimately led to your success. I don't know if you want to get into too much of where you're at with that right now, but just the fruits of your labor I recently found out are coming to fruition, that you've been able to do that. So I really, use you. I'm going to use you as a success story when I talk to other clients about, it's about how much energy, how much effort you're putting into it, and how those networks can really help out and getting involved with, whether it be through LinkedIn or going to career fairs, whether it be doing all the little like the enterprise connection, whatever it is, to make those connections where, and like you said, more likely than not, it's going to be who you know versus submitting your application into the ether.
Yeah, to your point about being an 06, I think what's most important is that no matter who or what you were coming out of the military, is you got to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
Just be humble and know that there's a lot of other people just like you, right, coming out. So you're not the only one around, and so you got to be humble and you got to be patient. I'd say those are two huge things, because one thing I learned is that the civilian environment is a little bit slower than the military. If you send an email in the military, you'll probably get a response in a day or two.
Right.
That's not so much if you're trying to interact with people in the defense industry or whoever. So you gotta have patience, and then you just got to be willing to grind it out every day. You got to work hard. I've heard people say, looking for a job is a full-time job.
Yep.
And you have to treat it that way. So to your point about the energy I brought to it, I was like, hey, I gotta get after this. I took a little breather when we drove our cars, from Monterey to here. We didn't drive straight here. We took a slow road trip, if you will, which was really nice.
Yeah.
But the moment I got here, it was, both guns blazing. I was at a network event with the NDIA the very first week I was here. Meeting people, and I attended an event every week since I've been here.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I'm going to use you as an example, because I've also had other 06s or, just senior people, E9s, E8s, that say that retiring and or transitioning is probably one of the hardest things they've ever done, because I think it's easy, like you said, you get to a certain senior level. When I send an email, I expect that email to come back pretty quick, right? Like there's, getting used to, like, well, I'm not that, at that senior level anymore. People could probably care less if what I think about as far as when I get the email back to them or not.
Right.
And I also think that a lot of times what I found is that the veterans that I help, especially the ones that are just getting out, whether it be senior or junior, doesn't matter, that there's like you said, you have to have patience because you're just like everybody else. Versus sometimes that maybe it's our ego, military ego that's inflated, that of course people are going to want to hire me. I've been doing this for 4 years, 20 years. Of course they're going to, but it really doesn't, what I've found out, it really doesn't work that way. Did you have this similar experience of like, yeah, you did several years in the military. Okay, nice. But what have you done for me lately?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's come across from
Okay,
any.
good.
No, yeah, I think everybody has been hugely, just respectful
Great.
of what we military people can bring, Now, certainly there are some technical skills that a lot of people have that are very, very specific, and they need to be able to show that they still have like an engineering certification or they're current on whatever licenses. But, in general, people are just like thankful that, to have people in the military that are, retiring and availing themselves to the opportunities to continue to serve. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's cool. So we'll talk about your transitioning and that part. What's one thing that you wish you would have known before? What would be one, if you had a cautionary tale to tell somebody that's transitioning out, what would you say? Hey, look, I didn't quite do this right, or I should have done XYZ a little bit better. Is there a piece to the transition that maybe that you would be aware of, or that you would place number one on your list?
It's a great question. There are, we've already kind of touched on some of them, but I think I'll go back to the patience piece. I was not prepared for the amount of interactions that and I've heard this from other people that are in a similar, part of their transition journey, which is just, I think every person should be ready to submit and engage with people and get not a lot of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been the biggest challenge that I've heard other people face, is that these, organizations, companies, that you're applying to, they don't owe you anything, right? They don't owe you any feedback. So when you submit all these applications to, say, a company or two companies, it's been months for me and I still haven't heard back from them. But I can see on their hiring portal that my application is still active. It doesn't say it's been denied or I'm not eligible. It just says that it's sitting there. So if that's what I would say is the one thing I would tell people, and I do tell people, is that you got to be patient and you got to be ready to move on when you can.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to wrap it up a little bit here. So some final reflections and get some knowledge from you. So what's your definition? Would you define a successful transition, or how would you define success? Has it changed since you've been out of the military or anything like that? How would you measure that?
I would say success for me is having more time with my family.
Nice.
And that's always right, my number one thing. But now I'm in a position where I can be very picky to choose something that allows me to really actually get after it. Because, in the military, as you get more senior in the military, you have to do a lot of things. And there's not a lot of time left at the end of the day to be with your family. And so, we got out of the Air Force, kids are going into high school. I can pick a job that allows me to be home more often than not and be home to watch them play football. And so that's success for me.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people, that's a common thread of people, especially retiring, is that, that family time that we had to either sacrifice or put, not necessarily put on the back burner, but had to sacrifice that family time in order to get where you wanted to get.
Right.
So that's great that you're able to do that. So what would you tell people out there about what has Still Serving Veterans done for you, provided for you? What would you, if somebody said, hey, I heard this group called Still Serving Veterans, what do you think? What would you say?
Well, I mean, first, the organization is one that has the transitioning service members' best interests, at its core. And I think that's for me, the way you reached out to me and Dave reached out to me, offering your help. And what I appreciated about you, Corey, most probably is that it wasn't a one-time thing. Like a lot of people say, I'll help you out. And then you never hear from them again.
Right.
But you consistently checked in on me, while I was still in California, sent me an email here and there, just like, hey, how's it going? Just let me know that you were thinking about me. And that showed, and then that once I got here, that transitioned straight away into, an in-person connection.
Right.
And then both you and Dave recommended, hey, go do this, go do that, meet this guy, look for this event coming up, those types of things that I wouldn't have known about. So that's, so from an organizational standpoint, Still Serving Veterans is a great for that.
Okay, great, sir. Well, we'll leave it on that high note. We really appreciate it, sir. Is there any last little tidbits that you would like to give that somebody, listening to this podcast? No?
Well, I would say, if you haven't already, clearly if they're watching your podcast, they've got some connection with, Still Serving Veterans, or at least they're thinking about it. So hopefully I can at least have brought that excitement to them to join and ask for your support. And then I would, hopefully anyone can see that, I don't want to paint a horrible picture. Transition, retiring, it is a tough go, but I think the end result for all of us who get through the process successfully, and everyone should, will be happy that they made that decision.
Nice. All right, sir. Well, that's it for us here at Mission Transition and Still Serving Veterans. And we'd like to thank retired Colonel Mark Jones for coming in. And I look forward to working with you, sir, some more and finding out where the next chapter leads you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Mission Transition, a podcast from Still Serving Veterans. Have a question, a comment, or want to share your transition story on the show? We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, social@ssv.org.